right, I'm Shruti. I'm the founder and CEO of Wingman.
एक मिनट रुक जाओ, रेडी होने दो. चलो ये कर लेते हैं. This could be a great intro.
When I was trying to select my MBA specialization, the advice I got at that time was simply this: look at the CEOs of publicly listed companies. How many of them are from the fields other than sales? This made me realize how important sales is to a company. Taking this one step further, think of how important is software that helps companies to sell better. Wingman is operating in exactly this space. It is a SaaS tool that helps companies to give real-time coaching and mentoring to their sales teams using AI. Wingman gathers insights from a variety of sources to offer intelligent recommendations that help increase conversions. Shruti Kapoor, the founder of Wingman, is a rare breed. She is a female founder of a SaaS company, studied in Singapore and then IIM Ahmedabad, ran sales for multiple SaaS companies before identifying the problems faced by sales teams that led to create Wingman. Here's Shruti sharing her journey of entrepreneurship.
So part of it was that it's hard to, it's hard for people to enter data fully. And the second part of the problem was that irrespective of how great a set of notes I write, it's hard for me to convey, the customer's feelings, emotions, the whole story back to other people. Right?
So
And
like
kind of-
visibility of leadership into what's happening in sales conversations.
Yeah.
That visibility was lacking.
Visibility was lacking, and the ability to take the voice of customer to the organization was lacking. Right? And the third part of it really also was that, when you enter data into the CRM, you enter the information that you know will be useful, right? Now, you don't know what you spoke about that might be useful in the future, right? There might not be a field in the CRM for what, you've heard just now. So, in the Pioneer example, like one of the things that used to come up was, okay, what is the currency that people care about, right? Because, okay, we support US dollars, we support euro. Now, tomorrow, if somebody tells me that, the banking team can actually enable Australian dollars if people really want it, I can go and enter that information going forward. But, all of the customers that I've already spoken to who have been telling me that I want Australian dollars, I've lost that information. And I didn't think that information was useful because at that point, we didn't have any plans around it. So it was also about saying that you don't know what is going to be important, and you want to be able to know that because the information that your customers give you is very valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So I met my co-founder through a common friend, who was my batchmate at IMA and my co-founder's batchmate at IIT. And what we, he had been working with Google in the US for many years and had decided to move back to India with, the intention of starting up something of his own. And so we started talking. I'd already quit intellectual ventures at that point. I was still kind of deciding whether I should join Pioneer or whether I should do something of my own. That's when we first met, and we ideated on many different things before starting this up. When this idea finally came up, there were three of us, right? The three of us as co-founders, and we had been thinking about different types of things where we thought we could, have some slightly better advantage, right? So both my co-founders have a great technical background. So we knew that we could build something that required, some serious tech chops. But with this particular thing, when we came up with the idea, then we tried to basically go out there and interview many people because I didn't really, I had just done one stint in sales, right? And it had only been for a year at that point. So we spoke to many different salespeople in India to understand whether this was, a common enough problem. If we were able to solve this, then what are the questions that people would want to be able to answer with that data and stuff like that. But that was literally at that point where we were. And we had, of course, with our backgrounds and networks, we had some investor interest by then.
So how did you decide to attack this problem? I mean, the way I see it, there are like two approaches. One approach is build a CRM from ground up. And the second approach is build a layer on top of existing CRM. So, what approach did you decide to take?
Yeah, so we definitely took the second approach, right? And the idea was that, the CRM is already doing a lot of the analytics, right? And can I do two things? One is, can I make the information entering part in the CRM better, right? So can I automatically, at least if nothing else, can I just go and update the CRM to say, Akshay and Shruti spoke at 6 p.m. on 17th December, right? The other part of it was to say that, listen, people are already used to entering data into the CRM. I don't want to kind of recreate that experience for them. But because they are entering at least things like, I won this deal or I lost this deal, and those pieces of information are probably the most reliable because that's where, you are getting your commission pay, right? So even if they don't update anything else, they'll update those. So that was kind of the place where we were like, we can take that data in and then we can kind of try to draw conclusions and trends and correlations between, if this happens on a call, that means that I'm more likely to lose a deal. If this happens on a call, then I'm more likely to win a deal. So now, not only did I have the call information, but I also had the outcome information, and I could try and marry the two to help people kind of get better insights into what really, is a good practice. Because till then, people were literally flying blind, right? Like I would say, I think this is the best way to do sales. Somebody else would say, no, I think that approach works really well. And they would have no way to compare notes or to prove each other right or wrong.
But how would you get visibility into what happened before that deal was closed? Like, this is what happened in the call. Like, how do you get visibility into that?
So we record and transcribe the call.
Okay. And
so
this is like in case of this through a Zoom and a Google Meet integration, right?
Yeah. So the way it works is it integrates with the calendar of the salesperson. So it automatically knows, okay, you have an external meeting at this time, and then it automatically records that meeting by joining the meeting as as a third participant in that meeting as a bot. The other way that a lot of salespeople, of course, also make sales calls is by using a dialer, right? So they might, like some of the CRMs have their own built-in dialers, and they can just click on that button and make a call. And we also integrate with those.
Okay, got it. And this was your plan from day one. Like you said, I mean, your thesis was that let's build something which can capture what's happening in sales calls and add that data to the CRM and also look at outcomes from the CRM and then build smart recommendations using this additional data that we are capturing.
Yeah, that was the plan from day one. And, part of it was to say that, so in my own experience at Payoneer, for example, we were recording calls, not for the in-house salespeople, but we had a call center that was doing some calling for us. But the challenge there was that you would have literally, these poorly named MP3 files in one folder, and nobody knew what that meant, right? Like what eventually happened after this call. There was no correlation between the CRM. And that was the universe that I was coming from, right? So I was like, okay, recording the call is great, but reviewing the call takes a lot of time. There's no way for me to search, what was spoken in a call. And there is no way for me to correlate this with what happens next. So, literally those were like the first three things that we wanted to solve.
Okay. So this sounds like a product more for the West than for India, because I mean, I know that transcription of Indian, because as a podcaster, I've tried out some of the tools available to transcribe the podcast recordings, and they don't do a great job. Like, when unless I'm talking to someone like you who's very articulate and polished in terms of communication skills. But so, like, did you build it for India or did you build it like for the West? Like,
so it was definitely a journey, right? I think initially when we were building it, we knew that we were not going to support the local language use case, right? Um, but we felt that maybe there was enough market for two things in India. One was companies that were trying to sell from India but to the rest of the world, right? And second was companies that were selling for rest of the world, right? Which was basically your call centers that were maybe selling for like a Comcast in the US but based out of India. And of course, the third part of it was, we could sell it to customers in the US. So in our journey, we explored all three. What we realized was that, the first case was definitely possible, and we have customers who are, companies based in India, but selling to the rest of the world. The second case, which was call centers, was, not necessarily ideal for us. One of the reasons was that they have a lot of data security and restrictions, and they literally don't have the rights to actually put up their call recordings on the cloud, right? And while they were very interested in the solution, they wanted us to build an on-prem solution for them, which we felt wasn't very well aligned with what we wanted to build. And so, of course, the third option was that, since the first market isn't large enough, then, we do also have to sell directly to companies. US. So yeah, that's the primary market today. So, 80% of our revenue today comes from North America.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So tell me about the product journey. Like, what was product V1 that you launched?
So product V1 was literally like a proof of concept that we never used for our customers. It was more just kind of a demo product. When we were trying to do our initial fundraise conversations and when we were trying to tell ourselves what is it that we could do. The product was a phone app that you could use to call another person, and that call would get recorded. It would immediately get transcribed, and then you could search that call. And it would also, label that call, do some basic annotations on it. And then we, of course, knew that, one of the things that businesses would want to do is they would want to be able to see this data with trends, analytics, graphs, all of that. And for that, a mobile app wasn't the ideal platform. So when we started building the customer version of the product, it was, from day one, a web app, right, which would support large dashboards and stuff like that. But one of the things that we were thinking of building early on was a way for people to be able to A/B test their call scripts, right? And literally where that was coming from was, listen, people like to A/B test everything, right? In marketing, people A/B test website copy. In sales and in marketing, people A/B test, emails, what is the subject line that works, everything. And so people would immediately understand what the power of A/B testing is. And it's hard for people to A/B test sales calls, but, here is a way we could help them do it. But we very quickly moved away from that idea, right? One part of that reason was that, a call is a very reactive environment, right? So it's very hard for me to say that, did script A happen or did script B happen? Because very often it could be a mishmash of the.
Yeah, it doesn't follow a clean template. Like, it could go anywhere. Mm.
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of moved away from that. But, the product has evolved, but it hasn't had like significant breaks, right, in its journey. One thing that we did realize was that when we, what customers say they want and what they actually want and how they use the product can be completely different things, right? So when somebody is buying the product, the features that they will look for and ask for, are features that sound cool, right? When they're using the product, very often they will be bread and butter features, right?
Give me an example, like, to kind of make it.
Yeah. So in our case, right, like people will be very excited by dashboards, right? Like they would be like, oh, you know what? Can you tell me if I lose a deal, then, do I lose it to competitor A or B? And, at what percentage of calls does this happen and that happen, right? And, we have all sorts of fancy dashboards. And then they would want to know, I coached Akshay and then, I told him that he should be talking less on calls. Now, can you tell me if 1 week later, his talk to listen ratio has improved? Right. And we built all of that. And then we realized that people don't care about any of it, because all they care about is knowing that Akshay lost the last deal. And if he lost the last deal, I want to go and listen to the last 3 calls that he had with the customer to know why he lost the last deal, right? At that point, I don't care whether his talk to listen ratio was 30% or 70%. So that's like one of the examples of way people think about buying a product versus using it. For us, a big revelation in some sense was that, if your product is not solving for the KPI of your decision maker, then your product will not see adoption, right? So what I mean is, every single person we spoke to was excited about the product because they felt they could use it to coach their team better, right? They were all coming at it. Yeah. But, there's a subtle difference there, right? They were all coming at it from, and maybe this was a little bit of a bias that I brought to the table as well, where I was telling you the story where I had, 3 salespeople, one person was maybe doing really well, one person wasn't. And everybody could relate to that problem, right? In any sales team, you go, the person who's the bottom performer and the top performer, that difference is like, maybe 3x in revenue, right? It's huge. And so everybody is like, I want to make my bottom performer do better, or I want to make my average performer, become a top performer. But literally, that's not what your KPI as a sales manager is, right? Your KPI as a sales manager is the overall number that your team achieves, right? Nobody is giving you a reward because your bottom performer is now doing 20% better. But if your overall team misses quota, you're going to still get punished, right? So while everybody loves to talk about coaching, very few people actually make the effort to do it, right? And you can see why, right? It's not because they're lazy people or they are bad people, but it's just because it's not what the company is rewarding them for. And if your incentives are not aligned to what you want people to do, it will not get done. And so what we realized was that while everybody loved talking about, how they could coach better if they had a tool like this, you would hear crickets, in terms of usage on the platform, right? Like, first week they would go in, and second week they would maybe go in, and by third week, like, nobody's using anything. And that's because, one, it's not part of the KPI. 2, it's not part of an existing process, right? Before this, they didn't have any call recordings, and there was no need to have time on your calendar to review a call recording. And so nobody was in the habit of reviewing call recordings, right? And now initially there was excitement, but nobody knew what to do with it next. And so we kind of, learned 2 things from there, right? One was we realized that we want to either solve the problem end to end, right? Where if somebody says that, listen, it's really important for me that when a customer asks for a discount, my sales rep doesn't immediately say, okay, I'll check with my manager and I'll give you 10%, right? I instead want my salesperson to say something like, I understand everybody wants a good price, but have you thought about the ROI that this can deliver for you? Yada, yada. Now, our solution to that was, listen, we know what's happening in the call. If we can know what's happening while the call is going on, then maybe I can even tell you that, oh, discount just came up. Now, can I tell you right there, do this, right? And so we had to build a lot of, pieces of technology to enable that, because till then, people were only transcribing once the call was over. You would wait for the recording file to get uploaded to a server, then you would put it for transcription. So basically a 30-minute call would take another 30 minutes for it to be transcribed and ready. But what we did was we built a way to, stream that in real time, transcribe it, so that as soon as a person asks for a discount, we would pop up a cue card on the screen of the salesperson saying, hey, you know what? This is how you handle this.
Okay. So you started in I think end of 2018, right?
Yeah, we started mid 2018.
Mid 2018. So how long did this journey of figuring out that product market fit, how long did that take? And for you to figure out finally that you need to build something which delivers coaching rather than just something which delivers insights?
Yeah, so we figured that out relatively early. right? At least the first iteration of it and the problem behind just delivering insights. So, by January 2019, so in December 2018, we interviewed people with the prototype, with the MVP of the product. And we had paying customers at that point. And once we started looking at their usage patterns, and we also went and interviewed a bunch of people who were using maybe other similar products, we kind of came up with the insight that the promise of coaching versus the reality of coaching was different. And literally within a month, we had like MVP which could do the real time cue cards. But taking it from there to a product that people could use, to iterating it with them, to understanding the challenges that people conceptually had, that was a longer journey. What we also realized in the process was that when people think about adopting a platform, right, they are of course excited by the ultimate promise of the platform, but there is like an activation energy, right, which is what do I need to do to get this set up and delivering value for me? And if that activation energy is too high, that transaction doesn't happen, right? So what would really happen is that people found the cue cards exciting, but they felt that it was very time consuming for them and very onerous for them to set up cue cards.
Okay. How did the setup happen? So say I'm on a Zoom call or a Google Meet call, then how will I see the cue card? Like, is it like the Zoom call is within a Wingman window and therefore I'm able to see it? Like, how does that happen? Like,
yeah. So Wingman has a separate desktop app, right? So just like your Slack can send you notifications, right? That desktop app would send you notifications with that cue card, basically as and when needed. But the setup was really creating the content for the cue card, right? So somebody has to decide when should a cue card show up, right? And what should be written in that cue card, right? Like, okay, in the example that I gave, discount, then, what are the talking points about it? Now, somebody needs to update those talking points. Somebody needs to manage them. And so all of that, they felt that, we don't even know actually what really we want salespeople to say. And, I'm not sure if we have all of that written out somewhere that we can go and easily put it up on this platform. And therefore, it's too hard for me to start thinking about this and doing it. I wouldn't say that we've fully solved it today, right? There are a few different things that we have done around it, right? One is to identify things that don't require much setup, right? Which is in our parlance to say things which are related to behavior versus content, right? So I can easily tell someone that, hey, you've been talking for a long time now, it's time to take a break, right? And I don't need much of a setup for doing that. And it doesn't matter whether the customer is selling, a SaaS product or a car, a long monologue is still a bad thing, right? So one approach has been to find some of those type of things. The second approach has been to, of course, create some content which is out of the box. And the third approach to it has been to also enable other parts of, the roles that a salesperson needs to do. For example, taking notes during a call and facilitating that because we are doing this real-time transcription.
and even the data entry, like say entering whatever you update the CRM that you did a call and next call is of this date and whatever stuff.
Yeah. So all that happens automatically.
So I'm imagining that this the content part of the nudge would be very product specific, right? So are you like building a library of nudges for different products so that and then like say maybe you have a library of nudges for SaaS products and that then becomes a plug and play for a SaaS customer? Is that the approach you're taking, or?
No. So I think there literally the content has to be very specific to the customer, right? You can't even generalize it at the level of, SaaS tools in a very small space, because literally if you think about what are the top 2 or 3 types of contents that are useful, as real-time content, because you also have to remember that these are B2B salespeople. They've had extensive training, right? These are not people who are, hired into a company and put on the phones the next day, right? These are people who are hired and then go through like maybe 3 weeks of training and then a 3-month ramp up period, right? So these are highly skilled people. Um, and the type of information that is useful, one is, market intelligence or information about competitors, because that landscape can be quite complex. And definitely that narrative, every company is going to want to control, right? The second type of information that people find useful are, things that are very technical on the product side, right? Like, how does this integration work, right? So again, very product specific. And the third part of it is literally customer stories, because I want my reps to not just say, hey, you know what, Wingman works with ChargeBee. I want them to say that, hey, you know what, ChargeBee started using us when they were 20 people. Today, they've grown the team to 300, and we've been an integral part of their journey. Now, for a rep who has never met ChargeBee, right, they don't know how to tell the story, but I could, write out those talking points for them. So those are, probably the top 3 types of content cue cards that people want to make on the platform. And those are all very, very company specific, which is not necessarily a big deal for them, because they do have like dedicated sales enablement teams to create content for salespeople.
Okay. So, how do you streamline this process of creating these cue cards? Because it does sound a little intimidating to try and put so much knowledge down, and how do you even start thinking about what all I want to put down and stuff like that?
Yeah. So the one category of cue cards that we built for them out of the box are cue cards around handling standard objections, right? Which is, okay, what do you say if somebody says expensive? What do you say if somebody says my budgets are frozen? The second part of it is that...
So the prompts are there, and then the enablement team just has to write out the answers to those.
We actually have suggested answers for those, right? Because those are kind of much more translatable across companies. But then the second part of it, which are, like these type of cue cards, what we do is we do some working sessions with them, where the starting point is their own, onboarding material that they use for onboarding new reps, right? So they'll have maybe some PDF files, they'll have some competitor battle cards, and we help them take that and put that into the system.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. So, in a way, this would also help these companies to reduce the onboarding time when they hire someone new, because I guess even that onboarding journey, to some extent, Wingman could take care of it.
Absolutely. So that is a big part of the value, right? Which is reducing the onboarding time for new reps. Because literally in a lot of these cases, the full ramp up period for a B2B rep is between 3 to 6 months. Right. And we help companies, cut that into half.
Okay. But the onboarding is very much a high touch onboarding. This is not like a self-service SaaS kind of a tool. It needs a lot of hand-holding from the Wingman team to actually make it usable for a customer.
So the cue card part of it, yeah. But there are so the other part of the product is that especially from an onboarding perspective for new reps that teams find useful is the ability to share with them examples of different topics of calls, right? Like these are good pricing discussions, these are bad discussions around this particular competitor, right? So all of those things we enable them to basically create like game tapes or playlists that they can use for onboarding. And then the other thing that people use the product for is the ability to get the ability to listen to a 30-minute call in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. where I know what are the important parts that I should listen to. And we enable that by one, of course, recognizing who's speaking when, and also automatically annotating the call, right? So I'll say that, hey, listen, in the 23rd minute is where they talked about pricing. In the 28th minute, they discuss these next steps. So you don't have to go through the whole call to know where what happened. And literally, the third part, and going back to the other thesis that we formed during our interviews was, can we get closer to the KPIs, right? And therefore, what we today enable teams do is to understand what are the deals that are at risk and why we think they are at risk and what they should be doing about it. And we have a great vantage point on that, because we know every customer interaction, right? We are tracking their emails, we are tracking their phone calls, we are tracking their video meetings. So we can tell them that, listen, this deal is supposed to close end of December, but there hasn't been any touch points in the last 3 weeks, and this deal might be at risk. Or we've had 5 conversations, but we've not yet discussed pricing. Or we've spoken to these 2 people in the team, but I don't think that there's a decision maker that is part of this deal yet. So that's the other part that Wingman does, and that is completely out of the box. So there's not much onboarding required for that, because a lot of that is understanding correlation between deals that have closed in the past and what's happening in the deals.
Got it. Okay. Going forward, do you think the way for this product to become more accessible to companies is for getting rid of the Q card onboarding process, and in a way you could have a company implement Wingman, and then you are listening to the top salespeople, and that will help you to create AI generated Q cards, because the people who are closing deals are using information or are responding to questions in the right way, and then you can see that, okay, all 5 of these deals which got closed, this is how this question was answered. And so maybe the customer doesn't even need to work on Q cards.
Yeah, I think that would be a great way to do it. I don't know if there is enough, if the technology is good enough to do that today. But yeah, like a combination of some manual work plus some automation can definitely help there. The other challenge, and I think some of those things are easier in a more formula-like sales process, right? Like where you're maybe doing a high volume, low touch, low value sale, like B2C sale, right? But in a B2B sales process where there is lesser standardization, some of those things are a bit harder.
But with time, this would happen. No, maybe even your pricing could reflect that. Like your pricing could increase after 6 months, and the first 6 months would be spent in learning. Essentially, you tell your customer that deploy us today. 6 months it takes for the model to get trained, and
after 6 months we'll give you these type of additional insights that you can get.
Yeah. Like the nudges start coming after 6 months. Like you don't get nudges from day one, but as the system gets trained is when the nudges start coming.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Akshay.
Okay. So you have a desktop app, right? Like it gets installed on the desktop.
Yeah, we have a desktop app and a web app.
Okay. But will the web app also give cues, or the web app is just to see insights? And
the web app is only for seeing insights. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a Chromebook user, and so I always feel bad when people make products that I can't use. and Chromebooks are, I think for sales, Chromebooks are great because you need something light and quick, and so how would you solve that problem? Like,
yeah, that's very true. We do have some customers who are exclusively on Chromebooks, and also security sensitive companies like Chromebooks, because you kind of can pretty much control everything on them remotely, right? So today we don't solve for that. One way we could solve for that is using like a Chrome plugin to deliver things.
Okay. And do you also have like a training function in that, like, doing mock calls or helping take care of the onboarding process of a new salesperson, like, where they can listen to best calls and you can also chart out a journey for them that, okay, this, is that currently there in the product or part of the roadmap or?
Yeah. So the second part is part of the roadmap and part of it is in the product. The second part being, you can decide a set of playlists or, you can give like somebody an assignment to go and listen to certain things, right? We don't have a way to actually kind of do training for people, right? So it's not really meant as a tool where where we ask people to say that record a mock call and then it'll get automatically scored or something like that. So that's kind of not the intent with the platform. But the second part, which is giving them access to real life examples of what is a good example and what is a bad example, that's there.
But that also could be pretty powerful, no? Like, because you can have AI generated voice of customer, like
that's a great idea.
Because there are these tools which are able to create very natural sounding voice, and again, as a podcaster, these are tools I keep searching and experimenting with, and hence
I could even have like a deep fake, right? Like I could put Einstein as the customer asking questions about Wingman.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And what all integrations do you have? Like Salesforce, I'm assuming would be the the first one to integrate with. I mean, that's
So we
besides that, like
4 different parts of the ecosystem today, right? One is definitely the CRM. So within CRM, Salesforce, HubSpot, a couple of others like Pipedrive. The second part of the ecosystem is video conferencing tools, right? So Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meets, right? And all of that happens through the calendar. The third part of the ecosystem is dialers, right? So things like Ring Central, HubSpot dialer, a bunch of those, right? And then the fourth part of the ecosystem is, of course, messaging tools like Slack, right? So where basically people can subscribe to alerts, right? So I can get a daily alert on which are the deals that are at risk.
Okay.
So those are some of the different things that we integrate with today.
Do you also offer like a call prep for the day? Like you have this call today and here are some talking points for this call and like stuff like that.
I should get you on my product roadmap meetings. So that is part of the roadmap. Yes.
Cool. So let's talk pricing. Like, how do you price it? And like, what was the pricing when you launched? What is it today?
Yeah. So, literally, I think our first paying customer, we came up with a price working backwards from, what costs we were paying. And I think over a period of time, we've used a few different approaches to thinking about price. And it's not, I would say it's not easy or obvious to say which is the right approach, right? In some cases. Of course, one, the floor price and the ceiling price for the product gets decided by various external factors, right? Your floor price, you can basically decide based on either your costs, right? So cost plus approach, and your ceiling price gets decided, either by what is the most expensive tool that your buyer is used to paying for, right? Which in our case is literally Salesforce. And so when we try to price something, people are like, oh, I'm paying this much for Salesforce and I will never pay more for a tool than this. Or they'll be like, I'm paying this much for Salesforce. I can't be, paying more than half of this for you, right? So that is another way in which the ceiling gets decided. The third input that goes into it is, who's the biggest competitor in the space, or who's the closest competitor to you, and how much they are pricing for. So for us, we've kind of, evolved that approach, right? Of course, in our space, there is a large competitor that exists, right? And while they don't publish their prices, so there's a company called Gong.io, and they don't, publish their prices, and of course, the prices can be heavily, negotiated and all over the place. But you kind of have a sense, and then you kind of use that as another decision point. So we started out by saying that. So one was arriving at the number, right? The second was trying to arrive at the decision of saying, do we want it to be only a single tier of pricing, or do we want it to be like, multiple tiers based on different functionality, which in our case was, insights and cue cards, right? And the third option there is to say, we have a base plan, and then you can have like an a la carte to add on things. Right. So we and the other option literally for us was to think about, do we want to price on a per user basis, right? Which was maybe more closely tied to two things. One was the ROI that we wanted people to see, right? Because people think of ROI in terms of the performance of their reps, and each rep has a quota. So for a sales manager to do that calculation is easy, right? And the second advantage of pricing it by rep is that you know exactly what you're paying for, right? If I have 30 reps, I know how much this tool is going to cost. But for us, there is also a reasonable option to price based on usage, right? And we can do that, based on either number of calls or minutes of calls or something like that, right? As a metric, and say that, this is a more fair pricing in subsets. We decided not to do the latter, even though we've toyed with it, and we do that, we toyed with it for a few customers who had a very different type of business model. But part of the reason was that people want predictability and transparency in the pricing.
Okay. Is it like half of Salesforce now, or like kind of?
So it's,
And I mean, Salesforce doesn't have a standard rack rate, so that
yeah,
this answer to this question won't reveal your pricing in case that's a concern.
No, our pricing is on our website, and we do kind of take pride in the fact that it is transparent. So it's like we have a base price plan which is $60, and another price plan which is $90, and then
Per rep.
Yeah, so that's per rep per month.
Okay. So that's very much like US pricing. Like it sounds pretty expensive, like $60 per rep per month.
Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't this like limit your market, like this kind of pricing, or is there no use of chasing large market share at low price?
So I think for different target segments, those answers are different, right? For us, the target segment that we are going after today is the B2B sales segment, right? Where each rep, is broadly handling maybe a quota of around $1 million. Right? Now, when they're handling a quota of $1 million, the total cost of to the company, right, that the company is willing to spend on that person is also, like in the $200,000 to $50,000 range. Right. At which point, paying $1,000 for a sales tool isn't expensive, and literally the per month budget for sales tech is around $1,000. So in that sense, people don't often come back, and in that segment, they don't often come back and say, this is expensive, or I don't know how to justify the cost for it. Because they quickly realize that, listen, if I save one deal in a month because my reps did a better follow up or I got alerted on it early. But you're right. Like, if I'm trying to sell that platform to, say, a tech company in India, right? They are going to tell me that, listen, I'm paying my salesperson 25,000 rupees a month, right? And I don't care whether their efficiency improves by 10% or 30%, because, the cost of the tool is not going to get me that ROI, right? And they are going to look at it entirely from an efficiency perspective. So you're right that, there might be a larger market elsewhere. And for different markets, there would be a need for a different pricing strategy.
How would you navigate it if you decided to do different pricing for different segments? Like, is that the reason why, say, like a company like Gong doesn't publish its pricing, because they would like do it like that, like based on who's asking?
Yeah. I'm not sure if I am comfortable with the approach of saying that, you can have very different prices for very different customers. Literally, would you feel scared if you had 5 of your customers in the same room? Right. So, I mean, I think it works. It definitely works in an enterprise setting where the investment that you make with the customer is well beyond the platform that you're serving them. Right. And each customer's onboarding requirements, the investment from a professional services perspective, all of that can be very different. And therefore, it's justified to have very different experiences there. But if we are trying to be a more SaaS product with the product as the hero, then I would much rather have a little bit
Have differentiated products. So maybe you have a differentiated product for the mass market.
Yeah.
Is there like a mass market play here of like a CRM plus coaching all in one for I mean, like there are so many unicorns getting minted in India, and a lot of them may not be like, say someone buys Salesforce, then they're with Salesforce for life. I've rarely heard of people moving out of Salesforce, but in India there would be like a large number of startups who've not yet married to a CRM, and that could be a play to create a like a premium CRM, which also helps them to improve productivity of sales reps that they are hiring. And so like is there like a play there, like a more mass market, bigger market kind of a play which you would want to consider?
Yes, I think there is definitely a play in terms of companies that are somewhat less mature in their tech stack journey, right? There are a couple of things there, though, right? One is just purely from a CRM perspective, it's of course a bloodbath, right? Like it's a fairly competitive market, right? Even someone like Freshworks, of course, they have a product in that space. Zendesk has, acquired a product in that space. But they've all found it hard to take market away from Salesforce, right? They've all been entry points into that ecosystem, and that's still a large enough market, right? Not to take away from that. The second part of it, which is to say that, can I completely change the concept of the CRM, right? Like, why do I need a CRM? It is a record keeping tool, but it is entirely designed on the premise of your human being, your salesperson being the person entering those records, right? If I was to rethink it from scratch and say that, listen, all of the information already exists, now can I just create a better visualization system for it? Then, that I think is a huge opportunity, right? And that is definitely not tapped. And that I agree is, somebody outside of the CRM ecosystem needs to think about it to disrupt it, because you need to think from first principles, right? You can't say that I will make a better CRM. You will say that I will make a CRM irrelevant, right? And I think that, is an evolution that we might want to get to, right? But where we are in the ecosystem today, there's definitely some benefit in making sure that you play well with the ecosystem, because your most mature players are there and they are the ones who are ready to spend money. But once you solve a bunch of problems for them, can you make them realize that they don't need manual data entry, and they can have much better information? Definitely, yes.
Do you use Salesforce within Wingman for your CRM, or what do you use? Like,
We use HubSpot.
okay. I mean, I use Salesforce and I hate the UI. It's such a, like, it looks like a decade old kind of a UI.
I think 99% of the Salesforce users will be on your camp.
Yeah. Which is why I was thinking, that despite it being a very competitive market, and there is still, I think, an opportunity to be had there.
Yeah. I think there is a huge opportunity to rethink the CRM from scratch. And yeah, that's definitely something that we want.
Is there a play of a play on data? Like data is the new oil, as everyone says, and is there a play there, like in terms of it could be something like even knowing that he's not the right decision maker, because that other companies who are selling this product have spoken to someone else in the organization. Is there a moat to be built using data, because you would be able to map out who's the right decision maker in which organization, or who's an influencer, or stuff like that?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a lot of valuable data that the platform captures. We of course have to be very careful about what information can be used across, for example, customers, right? So overall, I wouldn't say that from a ethics standpoint there is the ability to cross pollinate information, right? That you're gathering for one customer for the benefit of another customer, right? But there is definitely value in helping people, within the organization learn from each other, right? Which could be to say that, listen, in e-commerce companies, we find that people with this title, are more likely to be the purchase decision makers, right? Or to say that, the last time we had a pricing negotiation, this is the email copy we sent, or this is the conversation that we had, and we won that deal. Do you want to try the same approach? Right. So there is definitely a lot of cross pollination within the organization that can happen. And across organizations, people can benefit from looking at trends, right? Basically aggregated, anonymized data. But literally, I think, the biggest challenge today for a lot of teams and companies and products in general is that there's a proliferation of data, right? There is a lot of data that is suddenly, accessible, being gathered. Literally this data source didn't exist 5 years back, right? Like all recordings were being recorded and they were being dumped somewhere. Nobody had access to going and, finding patterns in them. But now that you have access to so much data, the challenge is that people don't know how to use it, right? And that is kind of where we see a big opportunity, which is taking all of this information and how do I take it from just being insights and analytics and dashboards right, into things that help me know what to do, right? And so the way we think about it is, how do I break it up into smaller pieces of recommendations? How do I bring those recommendations closest in context? And how do I bring them to the right person? Uh, so, the real time nudges during a call is just one example of it, right? But if I know that, like that email example, or, like you said, a call preparation example, right? And I could even be bringing that data from different sources, right? Could I help create that context for you? Because nobody does that today, right? Like, people have lots of different sources of information, but I don't know which platform to go to. I don't know which web app to go to, because literally a typical mid-size US sales team has subscribed to 30 different SaaS tools. And this is just for sales.
Okay. I want to talk about a thought experiment with you, purely hypothetical, just to get your take on this. What if someone was to create a product which was like a great CRM tool, completely free to use, and the way they monetized it was by charging some customers money for giving them access to that data of who are decision makers, who are buying, what products are they buying, because it's like a Facebook model, I could say, where the people using the free CRM are the product which is getting monetized to sell premium insights to other companies.
It's a very interesting model.
Would it work? Like, would it get adopted? Is free still something which will scale? I mean, free was something which scaled 10 years ago, no doubt about that. But will it still scale in today's market?
I don't think I think the free will scale, right? I don't think that is as much the question here. The question is there enough kind of when you begin to define what is the proprietary information, is there enough proprietary information that you can extract that people will be okay to give away, right? And that is not already available in like a LinkedIn. So I think that's kind of the fine line that you need to navigate to see. I would say that the free will work. I think people still love free stuff, but the other part is the bigger challenge.
Mm-hmm. What is what has the traction been like? Like, how many users do you have on the platform currently?
So we have almost 200 customers. Close to more than 2,000 users.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how have you funded this? Like, you told me you had initially some people who were willing to commit at the seed stage. How much did you raise then, and subsequently, how much have you raised?
Yeah, so we've raised one seed round so far, and we actually kind of timed it just after our Y Combinator stint.
Okay.
So we raised $2.3 million. Then that was like September 2019. We haven't raised another round yet. So looking to do that next year.
Okay. And why do you want to raise? Does the business generate enough cash for you to reinvest in tech, or like you want to spend more on tech and hence you want to raise? Like what's the reason for raising?
Yeah. So, the business economics overall, and this is generally true for SaaS businesses, right? They'll end up being good. Our model is also upfront annual contracts and payments, right? Which means that it gives you good cash flow. The reason for raising really is two things. One is, the market opportunity is huge. And that market opportunity is just, dramatically opened up, especially in the last 2 years. As people have realized that, listen, especially for sales, I can just completely have a remote team forever, right? And therefore, I can spend all that money that I was, spending on travel, office, all of that into tools, and everybody will have a better quality of life. I'll have better retention, all of those things. So in that sense, you want to basically go out there and get as much of the market as quickly as possible, because it's a greenfield market and you don't get that chance to the greenfield market very often. Second part is, like you said, right? Like the tech itself is quite, like there's a lot of different things that you could do here, right? Like, because it's such a exciting source of data, right? Like there are many different opportunities, many different directions that we want to test out. And so, yes, if we want to build a completely self-sustaining business, can it be done? Yes, it can definitely be done in this space. But because of those two reasons, we would, want to go a little bit more aggressive and all out, and therefore the additional capital.
What is like the total addressable market for this? Like when you would pitch to VCs, what would that pitch be? Like, how big is this market?
So, of course, different people would have different takes on it. ZoomInfo recently acquired a company in the space, and their calculation based on their ground up data, right, just based on number of companies with certain sizes, etc., was $18 billion.
Okay.
So
for a sales like a sales enablement SaaS.
Just for like this piece of conversation revenue intelligence.
Got it. Okay. And got have you do you have data in terms of what is the improvement in ROI? Like or let me not say improvement in ROI. Like, what is the improvement in sales? Like when somebody implements Wingman, what are the outcomes?
Yeah. So there are basically, three types of metrics that people like to look at, right? One is the reduction in onboarding time, which, like I said, one is it's really important because the tenure of salespeople is low, right? It used to be 18 months. With the great resignation, people are saying it's less than a year, but who knows? And the onboarding period is 3 to 6 months, right? So if I can bring that down, and in a lot of cases, people say that it's come down somewhere between 30 to 50%, depending on what their base itself was, they are able to quickly see what is that ROI, because the productivity period of a sales rep in their tenure is already low. The second type of metric that people look at is conversion rates. We've had, with some companies, we've tracked this closely, and they have seen their conversion rates increase somewhere between 30 to 100%. The reason for that is that you literally have to find that one lever that is affecting the conversion rate. Like in the case of the company that jumped it by 100% in 3 months, the lever was that they realized that trust was a missing factor across their calls, right? And they were losing deals because of trust. And what they needed to do was to go back and think about their sales process, to say, oh, listen, I don't need to train people on how to sell this product better, what is the pitch, etc. I need to find the 2 or 3 stories which help people win trust, right? And that's not very obvious, right? Because you're always focusing on, the hardcore aspects rather than the softer aspect. So that's the other metric that people look at. And that would really be my gold standard metric, except that it's very hard, right, in a dynamic environment to track that metric. Because there are so many different factors that are constantly impacting it, right?
Yeah. Maybe it's a product upgrade. Maybe there's a...
The source of leads might change, right? Your marketing campaign might change. Your pricing might change. So you can only look at that in short periods of time, right? And therefore, it's hard. The third thing is in terms of looking at, deal closure, wins, but maybe at the rep level, right? So I can say that, this was the variability across my reps. And I've been able to improve the performance of, my bottom quartile by this much, my middle quartile by my, whatever. So that is another way that people look at it.
Are there other competitors besides Gong, like in this space? Like who are you competing against? Like who do you see as your competitors?
Yeah, so the space is relatively new. Gong is kind of Gong and Chorus were the two oldest players, and Gong is definitely the largest today. Chorus got acquired, a few months back by another company called Zoom Info. In that consolidation, that we spoke about.
But Chorus is also like transcription of calls and then giving insights based on that.
Yeah. So of course, the one difference is that both Gong and Chorus are focused very much on, like the postmortem and the analysis piece. Our take is a little bit more on how do you make all of that actionable, because that's kind of where you can actually deliver value to the customer.
So what's your priority over the next 1 year?
For us, the real priority is to basically do more experiments around creating these bite-sized nudges, right? What type of nudges, where, when, right? That's definitely one big part of this. The second part of this really is to think of creative ways to get people to actually enable themselves with coaching, right? So like I mentioned, one of the challenges with coaching is that not that people don't know that it's important, right? The challenges with sales coaching is that people don't make the time for it, right? And it's not very exciting. So how do we make that exciting? Is there things that we can do from a gamification standpoint, some incentives, some fun ways for people to actually improve while they're doing this, right? So
give me an example, like a hypothetical example.
Yeah. So, for example, suppose I am launching a new feature, right? Now, I want my sales team to start talking about that new feature. Now, it's really hard for me to get the sales team to do that, because they're just, they have it their own flow. They're used to it. They've, already done 100 calls with the old thing. But now if I launch a competition, or if I say that, listen, let's see who talks about this feature the most in the next 1 month, right? Then I can quickly get people to adopt this new talk track, right? And because the platform can help me get the data and make it really visible, I can, do a fun dashboard where people can see, oh, you know what, I'm lagging behind.
This was the Spotlight, presented by The Podium. To listen to more such interesting conversations, log on to thepodium.in.